Hi there, friends. I'll come in here with a quick note to let you know that the first global Product Owner Summit organized by the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast is coming soon. To know more, check out the bit.ly/Product Owner 2023. That's bit.ly/Product Owner 2023. That's all one word, all lowercase. And stick around to the end of the episode to know more. But for now, on to the show. Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Thursday, Success Thursday here on the podcast. And this week we have with us Gemma Murray. Hey, Gemma, welcome back.
Hi, Vasco. Thanks for having me again.
I must say, I really love the practical approach you shared with us yesterday on the Wednesday podcast. So everybody, if you haven't listened to it yet, it's definitely a must listen to. We even got a new key phrase here on the podcast, and it is, give it 3 sprints. All right, so let's dive into success, or rather, let's dive into the retrospectives first. So Gemma, share with us, what's your favorite retrospective format and why?
I like to keep it simple with my retros, to be honest. I do like to shake it up every now and then, but I think especially with a new team or a team that are maybe getting back into the swing of retrospectives, three columns. You can do this virtually or face-to-face, a smiley face for the good stuff, a sad face for the not so good stuff. And then I like to do a question mark. I know a lot of people like to reserve the third column for actions or what can we do differently, but I like a question mark because I feel like the question mark, as long as you don't explain too much what you're expecting to see in it, opens up for a potential wide-ranging conversation. It could be anything from, one teammate asking another teammate, I wasn't quite sure how you approached that code review, by the way. Can you share more how you did that? So sharing best practice. Or it could be some, massive question that really gets to the heart of the team. Like, I wasn't sure why we actually did that story because it didn't seem to align to our sprint goal and it doesn't seem to align to our product vision, which opens up a massive question about value and where they're going and outcomes. So if you don't kind of over explain what the columns are supposed to represent, then it leaves it open to the team to interpret it as a group of individuals, and you can get very varying answers and conversations off the back of that. And I would complement that as well, if you don't mind me kind of going one step further, Vasco, with the action side of it. So obviously you still want to get improvement ideas, and the power is in the conversation. So you want to capture that, and the way of capturing that is in actions that, you guessed it, I want them to give 3 sprints to do. But for me, the actions have to be really practical. And there's an article I recently read on scrum.org, which finally kind of summed up the approach that I like to take, which is to CAT them, to CAT them, which is to make the actions concrete, attainable, and timely. I know a lot of people hear about SMART, and SMART is great. I'm not taking away from SMART, but I feel like because the retrospective is a very conversational format, or at least hopefully it should be, concrete, attainable, and timely just helps kind of wrap around it a bit of practicality. So to give you an example, maybe a team says, our user stories need more detail. In a lot of retrospectives, especially in my past, that would have been a very fine action by me. We recognize we need to put more detail in our user stories. It doesn't talk about how, when, who, why we're going to do that, although the why might be interpreted from the conversation. So instead of the user stories need more detail, try and turn it into what the very next step will be. And I kind of nick a little bit of this thinking from 15% solutions as well in liberating structures. But, you might want to say something like, we're going to work with the PO and find 2 good examples of user stories, and we'll use them as a basis going forward. And we'll do that by Friday this week. And then you've catted that action. You've made it concrete, attainable, and timely. It was the outcome that was our user stories need more detail. And that is what will be achieved if you kind of break it down a little bit further.
I really like that. This is also one of the aspects the Toyota Kata asks us to focus on, which is, okay, even though you might have like this target condition is what they call it, right? So user stories need more detail would be like the target condition. You first start by having a very concrete short-term step.
Yeah, absolutely. And just making it really like okay, what first step will you do to do this? And that usually is enough to kind of turn the action into something that's less vague and more cat. So, what's the first thing you would like to do? And then that opens up the actual next step that you will take. And I think not expecting things to appear overnight as well. They may have a big, massive action that needs to be sorted, like we need our product roadmap updated, which can take a lot of time and can involve a lot of stakeholders, etc. So I try and get them down to, okay, well, what's the first step you would take to do that? Oh, we need to identify who we need to speak to. Okay, let's do that this sprint. And just trying to get teams comfortable with, Rome wasn't built in a day. Let's do small changes that make an impact. And then it will be in a better position this time by the next retro.
Yeah, and as it usually happens when you do that first step, you will see different things you didn't see before. And, that means maybe the next step is different from what you thought it would be. And that's important feedback that we need to process.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The other thing that I really like, just a quick note, is this idea of putting the columns up, the sad face, happy face, and question mark without explaining them very much. Because what happens, and it's a very important psychological tool we have in our toolbox, is that the team will project into those columns what they think they mean. And therefore, the team will bring the most important happy topics, sad topics, or even you could use an angry face instead of a sad face. That's okay too. And to the question mark. And that is very important because, as you said, that allows the team to come up with a wide-ranging set of topics, but it also allows us as Scrum Masters to understand what are the key things going on in the team. And if we are too strict in the prompts we give the team, then they might not do that.
Absolutely. I think Scrum Master is one of the key lessons I've learned, and I'm a big talker. It's just to get comfortable with the silence, get comfortable with the questioning that you might get. Again, diverse teams, group of individuals think in different ways. You'll have people who will really want to understand something before they do it, who will really want to understand a user story in finite detail and how they're going to approach it before they actually build the thing, or will really want to understand give me an example of what I put in this question mark column. And as a Scrum Master, you have to almost stifle your innate helper and just be like, whatever you think should be in there is what you think should be in there. It's one of the most powerful statements that you can say and gives them the freedom to truly show their feelings. And yes, they'll feel uncomfortable. Yes, they might even challenge back, go, no, please give me an example. I have no idea what to put in here. And just say, whatever comes to mind, comes to mind. Please do not overthink it. So yeah, it's one of the silence or the not jumping to help is something to really, as a Scrum Master, I think you can turn into a really powerful asset for your role in your team.
So Gemma, now we talk about success, because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to get, right? Success for us and for the team. So let's dive into the Scrum Master role. Gemma, share with us, what's your definition for Scrum Master success?
I probably am seeing a theme in my own answers this week about them being really practical, but I'm going to keep on that theme. So I work with a fellow Agile coach at Moo, and we're always talking about how we can truly see the impact that we're having on the organization. And sometimes that's hard to do. Feedback is your friend, by the way. Just in general, get feedback from your teams, from your peers, from your managers, whoever you're interacting with. But measurement is such a black and white thing that sometimes is quite elusive to us Scrum Masters and Agile coaches about our own performance. And a couple of quarters ago, about 6 months or so ago, me and my fellow Agile coach kind of jumped on the idea of using measures that are already in place in the organization that we could use as evidence, and they're engagement surveys. Engagement surveys are an amazing tool that you can use, because I tell you without a shadow of a doubt that every single engagement survey would touch on some of the Scrum values: openness, respect, courage, commitment. Collaboration is not a value, but just general, I feel like I can collaborate with others. I see that as often a common question. So what we've done to build our own Agile coaching OKRs is to take one or two of those questions around a theme that's related to one of the Agile principles or values or whatever we need it to be. And then we use them as our measures. So we focus our efforts on any organizational or strategic work on those types of problems. And then hopefully by the next time the survey comes around, we'll have some data that tells us our work has had an impact. So it may not be the most leading measure. It's quite lagging because usually they're done annually, but you've got some work that you can measure along the way, and that will help you get to your overall goal, which I find really satisfying to actually find something that I can track against.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a very practical approach. I totally agree with you. And I want to make it even more practical. So give me an example of what are those questions that you're looking at in that engagement survey right now.
Yeah, so what we're looking at, I touched on it briefly already, is a collaboration. So the question is in the one that we use, it's a 5-part kind of scaling scale. So 5 being, I absolutely agree with this statement really strongly, and 0 being, I don't agree with this at all. And then you've got the steps in between. And the question that we're using, I don't know it word by word off the top of my head, but it's, I feel that I can collaborate with other teams in Moo towards a common shared goal. And it's something that we're trying to focus on. It wasn't on the lowest end of the scale, but because it aligned with our Agile principles and the work that we try and do at Moo, and also because it wasn't the highest scoring question, this is the one that we are kind of focusing our efforts on over the last couple of quarters, and we're hoping to see the impact of that hopefully before June this year. So that's just to give you an example of a question.
So let's reflect your thoughts back to you, Gemma. And if you were to advise a team of coaches or Scrum Masters on how to make this measurement more often, what would be your first step?
Ooh, I like it. I'm being tested now. This is great. Our first step, and I probably would take this approach in general, is to speak to people who have answered the question. So we have spoken to people, got their feedback on what they're feeling and experiencing right now, and then we kind of use that to come up with our first couple of ideas or potential solutions that we could use. And then we got more people involved. So asked for volunteers to help us work through this problem. I'll give you a proper example. So once we spoke to people, we realized that one of the key issues was transparency of all of the work in the department. So knowing what the other team over here was doing when you're a team that maybe is dependent on them was not quite where we would have liked it to be as Agile coaches. So we are in the process now of prototyping a work system design that shows all the work in the department. We're not quite there yet with it. But what we're able to do with that is actually put measures in place that tell us, have we got transparency here? And a way of testing that is by putting in place this work system design, have we identified all of the dependencies? So can we comfortably say we have moved from less of the dependencies being visible to all of them being visible? So you could turn that into a percentage, you can turn it into a not complete KR, whatever way you want to measure that, but we will know by a practical example that we have solved that particular smaller problem in a shorter amount of time, that over time, if the dependencies are visible, people will start speaking about them, collaboration should improve, and therefore the engagement survey, our lagging measure, should improve towards the end of the year.
Absolutely. That's a great way to break it down into something that we can start working on right now that we believe will help us with the overall metric, but something we can measure right now, right? Like this perspective on, over the last sprint, did you feel that you were aware of all the dependencies that were critical for you? And you can do this sprint by sprint, at least 3 sprints, of course, and then learn if this is changing anything. And of course, then, logically we think, okay, if transparency for dependencies that affect us is higher, then we will get a higher score on the collaboration question.
Yeah, and then we can learn from that. And if we see that the dependencies, there are still some hidden in the system somewhere that weren't quite clear, we can then adapt our processes from there and go forward throughout the year. And it's not just about that dependencies problem. That's just one example. There are other problems in this, and the point is to have almost a plethora of ideas of how to tackle this problem that you can systematically work through as you learn from your first experience and go forward. So similar to a backlog. Similar to what do we think is going to add the most value at this point in time? Let's try and do that first, inspect and adapt from there, and then pick the next one on the list as a result. So very similar.
Absolutely. Great practical experiment to run. Thank you very much for that, Gemma.
No problem, Vasco.
Hi there, Agile friends. Thank you for sticking around. This year's first global summit dedicated to the product owner role in Scrum will have some amazing keynotes and 2 tracks filled with first-hand stories and experiences for product owners to learn more about that critical Scrum role. We'll have Roman Pichler, author and product expert, who'll be answering your questions and sharing the most important aspects of the product owner role. We'll also have Colleen Johnson talking about why roadmaps are probably making your life much harder than it needs to be and what to do instead. This talk was quite a success in Agile Online Summit 2022, and Colleen has learned some new tricks, tools, techniques that she will share with us when it comes to roadmaps for the product owner role. And we will also have Henrik Nyberg, author of Scrum and Kanban from the Trenches, as well as one of the creators of the Spotify model. So come in and listen to his stories. And we'll also have, of course, 2 tracks with many more sessions and even some live sessions. The 2 tracks will cover practices every product owner should know, where we'll be hosting conversations on topics that product owners need to be familiar with, like product backlog refinement, planning, and much more. The second track will be on metrics, measuring product and personal success as a product owner. As product owners, it's crucial to have a clear understanding of what are the metrics that drive success for us and, of course, also for the products and businesses that we work with. And we need to continuously measure and optimize those metrics. So in this track, we'll be sharing what's working and what's not in the area of measuring success for product owners. We will also have the opportunity to network with our peers. It's a network event, of course, so get your tickets and join our Slack. Go to bit.ly/product owner 2023. That's all one word, all lowercase. As always, we will have free tickets and VIP tickets, which will give you long-term access to the content of this summit. So check them out at bit.ly/product owner 2023. All lowercase, all one word. I'll see you on the summit floor.